Great day, everyone! Today, we will discuss the three branches of government outlined in Article 6, 7, and 8 of the Philippine Constitution. The Philippines follows a presidential form of government where power is divided equally among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. In this system, there is a principle of separation of powers. Each branch has its own distinct responsibilities, ensuring a balanced and fair government. And now, let's discuss what is legislative branch first. The legislative branch. This is authorized to make, alter, and repeal laws through the power vested in the Philippine Congress. This institution is divided into the Senate and the House of Representatives, which represent the voice of the people in government decision-making. The legislative department plays a crucial role in enacting legislation, confirming or rejecting presidential appointments, and hold a significant authority to declare war. In other words, this branch ensures that the laws we live by are fair and just, and it also checks the power of the executive branch. Congress is made up of two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Let's look at this more closely. The Senate is composed of the 24 senators who are elected at large by qualified voters of the Philippines. These senators serve as representatives of the entire nation, and their role is to ensure that national concerns are addressed through laws and policies that benefit all citizens. On the other hand, the House of Representatives is composed of not more than 250 members. These representatives are elected from legislative districts, which are divided among provinces, cities, and the metropolitan Manila area. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives collaborate to draft, debate, and pass laws that affect the daily lives of Filipinos. Together, they ensure that our democracy remains strong and that the voice of the people is heard at the highest levels of government.
So let's proceed to the executive branch. So in executive department, we have the executive power, and it is the power to administer the laws, which means carrying them into practical operations and enforcing their due to observance. Sa madaling salita, sila ay hindi gumagawa ng batas kundi nagpapatupad. In this executive branch, it includes the President, Vice President, the Cabinet, Executive Department, independent agencies, and other boards, commission, and committees. Sa madaling salita, hindi lamang ang presidente ang bumubuo ng executive branch. So let's proceed to the key roles of the executive branch, which is the President, Vice President, and the Cabinet. The President is the head of the state and the leader of the national government. In addition, the President serves as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, meaning they have the authority over the country's military. The President also plays a vital role because they oversee the enforcement of laws passed by the Congress, lead the country's foreign affairs, and manage the overall directions of the government. Sa madaling salita, ang presidente ang pinakamataas na opisyal ng bansa at mayroon silang malawak na kapangyarihan at responsibilidad sa pagpapatakbo at pagprotekta sa bansa. But after their 6-year terms in service, they cannot be re-elected. Next, we have the Vice President. The Vice President supports the President in carrying out their duties and may also be given specific responsibilities. In the event the President cannot fulfill their role, the Vice President may step in to serve as the acting President. Halimbawa nito ay kung may pinuntahan ang Presidente na mahalagang okasyon sa ibang bansa, ang Vice Presidente ay ang pansamantalang gagawa ng mga naiwang gawain ng Presidente. Last, we have the Cabinet or the Gabinete. It consists of heads of executive department like those responsible for education, health, and finance. These departments make up a large portion of the country's bureaucracy. They are tasked with executing laws, policies in their specific areas. The cabinet advises the president on important national matters and helps manage the day-to-day operation of the government. Sinasabi rito na ang gabinete o ang cabinet ay isang grupo ng mga eksperto sa isang tiyak na larangan gaya ng education, health, and finance. Sila rin ang nagpapatupad ng batas sa kanilang tiyak na larangan. In short, ang gabinete ay isang mahalagang bahagi ng pamahalaan dahil sila ang nagsisilbing mga eksperto, tagapagpatupad ng batas, tagapayo at katulong ng Pangulo.
So now let's go to the third branch of the government. This is the judicial branch of the Philippine government. This branch is essential for evaluating and interpreting laws. Its primary role is to settle legal controversies involving rights that are enforceable by law. So, ang sangay ng hudisyal ng pamahalaang Pilipino ay isang mahalagang bahagi ng ating sistema ng pamahalaan. Ang pangunahing tungkulin nito ay ang pagsusuri at pagbibigay kahulugan sa mga batas ng bansa. Responsibilidad din nitong lutasin ang mga alitan na kinasasangkutan ng mga karapatang ipinagkaloob ng batas. The judicial branch consists of the Supreme Court, the highest court in the country, and the various lower courts such as the Regional Trial Court and the Court of Appeals. So, ang pangunahing tungkulin ng Supreme Court ay ang magbigay kahulugan sa konstitusyon, magsuri sa batas, maglutas ng mga alitan, at magpanatili ng kaugnayan at katarungan. Responsibilidad din nitong maging patas at walang kinikilingan, sumunod sa konstitusyon, maging matapat sa tungkulin at maging mahusay sa pamamaraan ng paglilitis. Ang Regional Trial Court o RTC at ang Court of Appeals o CA naman ay dalawang mahalagang bahagi ng sistemang hudisyal ng Pilipinas. Mayroon silang magkaibang tungkulin, ngunit parehong mahalaga sa pagtiyak ng katarungan at pagpapanatili ng kaayusan sa lipunan. Ang RTC o ang Regional Trial Court ang pangunahing korte ng paglilitis sa bansa. Dito naririnig at napagdedesisyonan ang iba't ibang uri ng kaso tulad ng mga kaso sa sibil, kriminal, at mga kaso na may kinalaman sa lupa. Ang RTC ay may pananagutan sa pagbibigay ng patas na paglilitis sa lahat ng mga partido sa isang kaso. Kailangan nilang tiyakin na ang mga ebidensya ay tama at ang mga batas ay maayos na nailapat. Ang Court of Appeals naman ay isang korte ng apela. Ang tungkulin nito ay suriin ang mga desisyon ng mga RTC. Kung may mga pagkakamali o hindi tamang paglalapat ng batas sa desisyon ng mga RTC, maaari itong baguhin o baligtarin ng CA o ang Court of Appeals. Ang Court of Appeals ay may pananagutan sa pagtiyak na ang mga desisyon ng mga RTC ay naaayon sa batas at sa mga prinsipyo ng katarungan. Kailangan nilang tiyakin na ang mga karapatan ng lahat ng mga partido sa kaso ay protektado. One of the key functions of this branch is to ensure that the government actions do not involve any grave abuse of discretion, that they adhere to the law. By doing so, the judicial branch protects the rights of citizens and upholds the rule of law, ensuring that everyone, including government officials, must act within their legal limits. Meaning, tinitiyak nito na ang kilos ng pamahalaan ay hindi lumalabag sa batas. Ginagawa nila ito sa pamamagitan ng pagpoprotekta sa mga karapatan ng mga mamamayan at pagtiyak na ang lahat, kabilang ang mga opisyal ng pamahalaan, ay sumusunod sa batas. The Philippine government seeks to act in best interest of its citizens through this system of checks and balances. So, ang checks and balances ay isang sistema ng pamahalaan kung saan ang bawat sangay ng pamahalaan ay may kapangyarihan pigilin o kontrolin ang kapangyarihan ng ibang sangay. Ito ay para maiwasan ang isang sangay na magkaroon ng masyadong kapangyarihan at maging masyadong malakas. The Constitution expressly grants the Supreme Court the power of judicial review as the power to declare a treaty, international or executive agreement, law, presidential decree, proclamation, order, instruction, ordinance, or regulation unconstitutional. Meaning, ang Constitution ay tahasang nagbibigay sa Korte Suprema ng kapangyarihan ng pagsusuri sa batas o judicial review na siyang kapangyarihang magpawalang bisa sa isang kasunduan, batas, kautusan, proklamasyon, utos, tagubilin, ordinansa o regulasyon na labag sa konstitusyon.
In conclusion, the three branches of government, the legislative, executive, and judicial, work together to uphold democracy in the Philippines. Together, these branches maintain a balance of power, safeguarding our democratic principles and ensuring that the government serves the interests of all Filipinos.
Hello everyone! Today, we will discuss also the fundamental powers of the state. These powers are essential for maintaining order and ensuring the welfare of the community. They consist of three primary powers. These are the police power, power of eminent domain, and the power of taxation. But before we discuss each definition, let's talk first about the similarities among the inherent powers. Despite their distinct functions, these inherent powers share some common characteristics. Number one is inherent in the state. These powers are natural to the state and can be exercised without explicit constitutional authorization. Number two, necessary and indispensable. The effectiveness of the state relies on the exercise of these powers. Number three, interference with private property. All three powers involve some level of interference with private property for the public good. Number 4, presuppose equivalent compensation. While compensation varies among these powers, the expectation of some form of recompense exists. And number 5, the primarily exercised by the legislature. These powers are predominantly enacted by the legislative bodies. Distinctions among the powers, while these powers have similarities, they also have distinct differences. Number 1. Scope of regulation. Police power regulates both individual liberty and property, while eminent domain and taxation primarily affect property rights. Number 2. Exercise of power. Police power and taxation are exercised solely by government entities. In contrast, eminent domain can also be exercised by private entities for public purposes.
And number 3, nature of property taken. Property taken under police power is usually deemed broxious or intended for a harmful purpose, while property taken through eminent domain and taxation is typically beneficial and used for public purposes.
And number 4, compensation differences. Compensation under police power is often intangible, based on the altruistic feeling of contributing to the public good. While in eminent domain, compensation is a full and fair equivalent for the property taken, while in the taxation, it corresponds to the protection and public improvements funded by the taxes paid.
It is essential to note that the exercise of these fundamental powers is not absolute. They are subject to the limitations and requirements of the Constitution. In specific cases, the exercise of these powers can be annulled by the Court of Justice if found to violate constitutional provisions or individual rights. And now let's talk about the three primary powers of the state. Number 1 primary power is the police power. Police power is the inherent authority granted to the state to create laws and regulations that they limit personal freedom or property rights, all in the name of promoting public welfare. It is the most prevailing and essential power of the state, as it ensures the health, safety, and general well-being of society. Primarily, this power resides with the national legislature, but it can be delegated to other bodies like the president or local government units. However, this delegation must always comply with the limits set by national laws. Characteristics of police power. One important characteristic of police power is that it covers a wide range of areas. It is one of the strongest powers the government has, and it is essential for maintaining order. Police power affects almost every part of public life, and its main goal is to prioritize the welfare of the people, following the idea that the welfare of the people is a supreme law. Even though police power is broad, it has limits. Rules like the Due Process Clause and Equal Protection Clause protect people from unfair use of this power. These ensure that the laws and actions under police power are fair, reasonable, and don't unfairly target anyone. Requisites for the valid exercise of police power. To exercise police power lawfully, two key conditions must be met. First, there must be a lawful subject, meaning the regulation must address a legitimate public welfare concern. For instance, laws concerning public health, safety, and morals all fall under valid subjects of police power. Second, the means of achieving these goals must be lawful. The methods used must be necessary and proportionate to the issue being addressed. This means the actions taken should be reasonable, not excessive, and should directly contribute to promoting the public good. Both the ends and the means must align with the legal standards to ensure that the power is exercised fairly and justly. Superiority of police power. One of the most significant aspects of police power is its superiority over other legal principles. including contracts, treaties, and property rights. Treaties may be binding agreements between states, but they cannot limit or override police power. Likewise, contracts cannot stand in the way of police power when public welfare is at stake. This superiority underscores the critical role of police power in ensuring that individual or group interests do not take precedence over the common good.
Number 2 is the power of eminent domain, is also called the power of expropriation. It allows the government to forcibly take private property for public use. But the owner must be paid fair compensation. This power is important for public projects like building roads, schools, or utilities. Requisites of exercising eminent domain. Number 1 is the necessity. This is the property taken must be needed for a public purpose. If the public need goes away, the government can no longer keep the property. Number 2 is the private property. Any privately owned property can be taken for public use, including utilities like power or water lines. Public use. This means that the property must be used in a way that benefits the public, whether by providing a service or some other general benefit. Taking. Taking refers to the government gaining control or title of the property. In some cases, the government may not take full ownership but may impose restrictions or use part of the land while the owner retains the title. We do also have the instances of taking. Number 1, the owner loses their property completely. Number 2, the owner can no longer use the property as they normally would. Number 3, the owner loses control over the property even if they still own it. And for a legal take-in to happen, the government must physically enter the property. This entry cannot be temporary. It must be authorized by law or through legal orders. The property must be used for public benefit or be affected in a way that harms its original use. Just compensation. This is the full and fair value of the property, also called its market value. The compensation should cover the owner's loss, not how much the government gains from the property. And that is all about the power of eminent domain.
So now let's go to the power of taxation. So power of taxation is a state's authority to collect money from individuals and businesses to fund public services and government expenses. This power ensures that citizens and entities contribute their fair share based on their ability to pay, allowing the government to function and provide services like education, healthcare, infrastructure, and security. So meaning, ang kapangyarihan ng pagbubuwis o di kaya ay power of taxation ay ang kapangyarihan ng estado na mangolekta ng pera mula sa mga individual at iba't ibang negosyo upang pondohan ang mga pampublikong serbisyo at mga gastos ng pamahalaan. Tinitiyak ng kapangyarihang ito ng mga mamamayan at mga entidad ay nag-aambag ng kanilang patas na bahagi batay sa kanilang kakayahang magbayad na nagbibigay daan sa pamahalaan na gumana at magbigay ng serbisyo tulad ng edukasyon, pangangalagang pangkalusugan, infrastruktura at seguridad.
In conclusion, the fundamental powers of the state, police power, eminent domain, and taxation are necessary for maintaining order and serving the public. They all involve government control over private property in some way, but they work differently. Police power ensures public safety. Eminent domain allows the government to take private property for public use with fair payment, and taxation collects money to fund public services. Although these powers are important, they are limited by the Constitution to protect individual rights.
After we tackle about the three branches of government and the fundamental powers of the state, let's have a review with question and answer. So let's begin with the three branches of government. First question is, what are the three branches of government? The three branches of government is, we have first, legislative, second, executive, and third is the judicial branch. Second question is, what is the main function of legislative branch? The main function of legislative branch is to make, alter, and repeal laws through the Philippine Congress. Third question is, what are the two chambers of the legislative branch? The two chambers of the legislative branch is the Senate and the House of Representatives. The fourth question is, what is the role of executive branch? The role of executive branch is to carry out laws through the President, Vice President, Cabinet, and executive departments. Fifth question is, who is the head of the executive branch? The head of the executive branch is the President. Sixth question is, what is the primary function of the judicial branch? The main function of the judicial branch is to evaluate and interpret laws through the Supreme Court and lower courts. We do also have to review about the fundamental powers of the state. We have 4 questions under fundamental powers of the state. First question is, what is the police power and its purpose? The police power and its purpose is to promote public welfare by regulating liberty and property to ensure health, safety, and general well-being. The second question is, what are the requirements for the valid exercise of police power? The valid exercise for police power is the lawful subject and lawful means. Third question is, what is the power of eminent domain and how does it work? It allows the government to take private property for public use with their compensation requiring necessity, public use, and just compensation. The fourth and last question is, what is the power of taxation and its purpose? The power of taxation and its purpose is to collect money from individuals and business to fund public services, ensuring citizens contribute their fair share based on ability to pay. That's all.